Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa Cole, and I thought I would take a few minutes, record a couple of short videos to perhaps answer some questions about a book I released this week called Brand Gravity. Um, I'll go ahead and share, I think, 3 or 4 videos where I'll take a few minutes and talk about why I thought it was important to write Brand Gravity, why I think marketers should read and implement the strategies and tactics suggested in the Brand Gravity, and also a little story about a company that definitely invested in these strategies and saw a fairly substantial increase in the valuation as a result of their accelerated growth. And so, without any further delay, let's just get into it. For years, we've all had this gut feeling that something in marketing was broken. The math of marketing, the unit economics, the math hasn't been mathing for a while now. We've been spending millions of dollars to generate thousands of leads. Depending on the organization you might be working at, that could be tens of millions of dollars to generate tens of thousands of leads. And less than a third of those, even in a best-in-class organization, lead to creating real opportunities to fuel the pipeline. And even less than that, less than 20% of those opportunities will result in a sale. And the end result, best case scenario, is less than 3% of all leads ever result in revenue. And again, that's best in class. That number can be as low as 1.5%. And to add insult to injury, it's taking longer to win fewer deals. These sales cycles are now 25, 30% longer. And at some point, somebody has to ask the question, why are we still doing this? Why are we still investing precious dollars to market like this? Why are we still wasting sales resources pursuing these at this point? Last summer, I started studying how startups, unicorns, were very quickly stealing attention and market share from the world's most trusted brands, industry-leading brands. And the real secret to that success is that the founders of those unicorns were creators. They were really smart people that were sharing insights, lessons learned, frameworks, IP for free, smart and helpful content with people like them that were wrestling with problems just like the ones they had solved. And they were doing it in a really smart, scalable way online. They basically were investing in these content flywheels. They showed up online consistently, sometimes daily, at least weekly, sharing smart and helpful content, interviewing their peers, providing answers, simple to understand answers to really difficult questions, frameworks and advice. And they were making sure that that content was repurposed and findable wherever their buyers were. They were virtually unavoidable. And so, as a result, the people they were trying to reach and attract ended up spending so much time consuming as much of their content in all these watering holes. They were spending so much time consuming that content that they felt like they were spending hours with these founders every month. And what they've learned is that if the buyers themselves had consumed like 6 to 8 hours of their content, that those buyers trusted them more than they did these industry leading brands. And that's how they were doing it. They were first stealing the attention. They were keeping them engaged. And as they were engaged, they were providing real value until that person was ready to make purchasing decision, at which point they were who they reached out to make the decision, like to engage from one human to another. And the sales process didn't feel like a sales process to either participant. It felt like a conversation. The customers themselves, the consumers of that content, are like, I already know you, I already trust you, I'm aligned with your point of view. Let's just actually get to solving this problem. And on the other end, the founders and their teams they initiated these conversations. They didn't have to deal with these long, complex sales processes that felt unnatural for them and the buyer. So, um, it was just how they were investing their time and in these flywheels, these growth flywheels. But I didn't have any data to prove that this would really actually apply to all of B2B marketing until there was a breakthrough in October, and Carrie Cunningham, standing center stage, was reviewing the results of the 2024 Buyer Experience Report. It's a study that Sixth Sense has invested in conducting a couple years in a row. And that research, what it effectively revealed was just how companies would make decisions to launch a search for a solution to a real business problem. And how that search would play out, by and large, was happening online and anonymously. And the extent to which that research would take place was, likely, large committees of people searching for answers in a variety of online watering holes. And this would go on for months and all happening anonymously until that company's buying committee effectively not only identified the right solution for them, their preferred vendor, their finalist. And then and only then, and this is happening, I think it was more than 80% of the companies that had initiated this process, then and only then would they reach out and talk to a sales rep. And the role of that sales rep, the target or the goal for that conversation with the sales rep was not to figure out if that company offered a solution, was the right provider for the solution, but was only to validate what they had learned through the research process. And so really what this research did for me was give me the data points I needed to understand that to win in today's environment, to really actually meet the buyers where they were and enable that buying journey, you need digital mass. You need substantial mass online to not just be findable, but also to make it easier for the buyers to get answers to the questions that they have, and do so in a way that builds trust as they consume all of that digital mass, keeps them with you until they are ready to make the purchasing decision. Noting here that none of this is controlled by the brand. And so all of these things clicked, and it occurred to me that the launching of that search is happening online. That's the digital universe. All the content that they might be consuming, all the interactions that they might be having online, that's digital mass, right? So digital universe, digital mass. A brand that wins in this environment has enough digital mass to create a strong enough brand gravity to pull these buyers into their orbit and keep them there until they're ready to make a decision. And then at which point there's so much trust that it's a simple validation. So after Carrie Cunningham's presentation, I sat down with him. I shared with him this vision I couldn't get out of my head of digital mass, brand gravity. He got to working on a simple framework to help companies assess how much brand gravity they have today, while I went and developed a 7-step process to help marketers figure out what they need to do differently going forward to build that brand gravity. Assuming, of course, you don't already have as much brand gravity as you need. And so that's why I wrote Brand Gravity. It's not that we didn't already know that something wasn't mathing, that something wasn't right. It's not that we don't have enough research to say that the buying process has changed. It's more like I believe marketers need a different blueprint, a different playbook to use to show up differently and become the enablers of that journey. And so I wrote the book to provide that blueprint, and Carrie Cunningham and his research and the self-assessment framework will help you know and understand where you're at today. Brain Gravity will help you figure out where to go from here. So I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.